trying to become citizens, they spend time and they put their hours forward to learn that language in order to get that citizenship. Okay, we know they do. They spend time, energy, money to do so. Where are you going to do? What effort are you going to do that? Now, of course, one of the mistakes we make as Americans, we think we can buy everything. If I buy enough books, if I pay for enough courses, through osmosis, I'll get there. Okay? No. The thing you got to pay the most is time and attention. That's what you got to do. You got to put in the time and the fall down time and the get up time and the fall down time enough times, and then finally, inshallah ta'ala, we'll get there. Okay? Inshallah ta'ala. That's my introduction for today. That's not our class.
Our intention is to have Abu Taubah viral internationally.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. The benefit is that we finally do it. That we set the bar, we set the standard, and we go forward. With that. That's what we do. We set the stage and we facilitate it for others after we ourselves get it out ourselves through our efforts. Inshallah. We are on the adab of the talabul ilm, the usul al-adab al-talabul ilm. What are the 5 usuls of the talabul ilm? The 5 usul al-adab. Give me the first one. Now it's a one-word sentence. The adab of the student with himself. Okay.
Adab of the student with his sheikh.
The second one is the adab of the student with his sheikh. What's the third one?
The adab of the student with his
Zamilihi. What's his Zamilihi? Classmates. Okay. And what's the fourth one? Cover your mouth. Pull your legs in. Sorry again?
The adab of the student.
Why do I keep hearing these ladies? Come on, men. Go ahead. Don't stop, ladies, but men, step up. Come on. Go ahead again.
The adab of the student with his lessons.
With his lessons, okay? What's the next one?
The adab of the student in his life as a student.
Life as a student. Alhamdulillah. Barakallah fikum. So we're between two things here, okay? We already covered the adab of the student with himself. Right? He deals with his heart. We talked about that, right? Yes or no, guys?
Yes.
Okay, sincerity is the real thing. To be sincere. Ikhlas. To have the fear of Allah. To worry that you would be one of those people that Allah drags on their faces to the fire due to a lack of sincerity. We seek refuge in Allah from that. Okay? We make our intention to remove ignorance from ourselves and those who we can affect. Those associated with us. Okay? That's what our objective is in that regard. Because that's putting into practice Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nar. Right? Save yourselves and your families from a fire. That is fueled with men and stones. Now we're going to deal with the adab of the student with his sheikh. And I also promised to finish reading from the book that I wrote, not the book, but the notes that I took back in Mauritania. Right? So we're between those things. Because I don't want to make us lose time, I want to first put on the board 10 manners that the student has to have with his sheikh. How many manners?
10 manners.
If you focus just on these 10, these are not the only manners. The general manner, the general rule with regards to the adab of the student with his teacher is this. This is an overall rule. Overall rule. Or manner, I shouldn't say rule. Mannerism. Have character. Say it, please.
Have character.
Don't.
Don't.
Thank you. That's the rule. That's the overall manner. It's a general manner. Say it again.
Have character, don't be one.
What does it mean?
Be complete, whole.
Be complete, whole. Okay, give me some more. That's not sufficient enough. Come on, guys. A good answer. Barakallahu fikum.
Be well behaved.
That's good, but that's not all of it. Excuse me?
Have the character of Prophet Muhammad.
All that's true. When I say have character, it means be yourself. Be authentic. Be you. Okay? Don't pretend to be somebody else. That's what being a character is. Does that make sense? Don't try to be funny. If you're funny, you're funny. Don't try to be serious. If you're serious, you're serious. Be you. Don't put on airs. Don't front. Don't pretend you know. Like he said, I don't know. That's cool. Don't pretend you know something you don't know. Does that make sense? Yes. And don't be embarrassed that you don't know. Just say, I don't know. What you come to class for, right? So obviously you came to learn something. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Having character, don't be one. When you get corrected, then don't be wrong and strong. Except, does that make sense? Because sometimes people get mad when you call them to account for being wrong. You come to class to be wrong. You're going to get, my job is to correct. Right? But sometimes the shaitan says, he can't talk to me like that. Trying to embarrass me.
You know who I am.
Right? He shouldn't have said nothing.
I am complete. I don't want to change.
Right. And that comes into I'm complete. I don't want to change. Okay? So to have character, and one of the things is, or some of these is, the TV promotes the sarcasm, the smart aleckism, all these types of, characters. We don't want to be a character. We want to have character. And that is complete. What one of the ladies said is taking from the character of the Prophet ﷺ and putting that on yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, but now we're going to write them all down. The 10 rules. Now these rules are just dealing with the student as he deals with his teacher in the lesson during the class time, okay? Now the reason why I chose only to mention these particular rules is because that's mainly where we meet with the Shaikh nowadays, in the lesson, okay? So I'm going to put them down here. I would like somebody to write for me. Come on. Make sure you're nice and bold. The first one is, it's going to be 10, so make sure you start over here and then, put it so you have them from, okay? The first one is al-istima'. Say it, please.
Al-istima'.
Which is active listening. What is it called?
Active listening.
What is active listening?
It's when you constantly listen.
Say it again, sir.
It's when you constantly listen.
That's part of it.
Concentrate on what's been said.
Okay. You're concentrating on what's being said. How do you do that? Give me a practical way you do that.
Your mind is paying careful attention.
Okay, your mind is paying careful attention, okay? One of the ways you can do that is they used to be able to count the words that the Prophet was saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was talking. One of the ways to do that is to look at the teacher when he's speaking, right? One of the ways to do that is also to try to, when you're allowed to make notes when he's talking, to write down what he's saying. If you try to write down everything the teacher was saying, you'd notice how different you'd be to paying attention. How much more of your mind and body would be paying attention to this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So active listening is the first one. Don't put it in that type of format. If I say it in Arabic, write it in Arabic from now on, okay? No, write active listening. Just write active listening. Active listening. Please, everyone, please say that.
Active listening.
The second one is, in Arabic it's called rikaz, but we're going to write in English, we're going to write focusing and forgetting. Focus/forget.
Forget.
Focus/forget. Now, what am I talking about? What does focus mean?
Pay attention. Pay attention.
It means to pay attention, right? That's one of the things. To listen and follow instructions. Astaghfirullah. To listen and follow instructions. To focus means to forget. What does that mean?
To forget
Everything
everything else.
else.
Thank you, sir. You are too slow. He got you. That's what you're supposed to forget. You're supposed to forget everything else. You ever go into a movie and then forget whatever else was going on? Whatever else you had going on for a few minutes, for an hour, you engrossed in that movie, right? Everybody follow me?
Yes.
Okay, that's what's supposed to happen when you come into class. Because if your mind is split, we got to have half person here. What I said before, if you got somewhere better to be, get there. Because we don't want an empty shell of a person here. You can literally, with your mind, travel. That's the influence the mind has on the physical plane. You know, thinking, true thinking is not done on this dimension. Did you know that? That thinking is closer to the dream state than it is to the active conscious state. You ever woke up on somebody and they're thinking and they're deep in thought? You could run your, pardon me, Shaikh. You could go like this. You could be like, hey, nah, boo-boo. And they'd be like, and then they'll see you, oh, you're like, man, he just came back. Where was he? His eyesight wasn't working. His hearing wasn't working, right? Because he was not in this dimension. It's almost the same as when he's sleeping. So in order, that state is done through focusing, concentrating, but most importantly, using your imagination while you listen. What do I mean by using your imagination? One of the biggest problems we have why people don't speak Arabic is because they are so rigid with what they hear. As-Sami'. What is As-Sami'? Who is As-Sami'?
The one who listens.
Allah. That's one of the names of Allah, right? What does As-Sami'u mean? The one who listens, right? What else? The one all hearing. Say again.
One who hears everything.
Well, if I ask the average person, how do you say I hear you in Arabic? You get my point? Most people say, well, I don't know. But you have it right there if you use your imagination. Even if you were wrong, you say, Ana Samir. And that's wrong, but someone would understand what you mean by that. You get my point? Yeah. What do we say when we come up from Ruku? What does that mean?
Allah hears.
Allah listens or hears the one. So why don't we use that? Instead of, you get my point? Because we're not using our imagination to use all the tools that we have in front of us, to play with them and put them in ways that they're not presently in. We're this rigid individual. And that's why you have to relax and use your imagination. Use your imagination while you're in. That means forget what you've been told. Take everything and break it apart and use it the way you want to. Let me tell you you're wrong. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excuse me? Absolutely. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Go ahead. Next one. Be prepared. 3. Be prepared. Say it, please.
Be prepared.
What does be prepared mean?
Have everything you
Ready.
need.
What is the word? What's a prefix? Before. Pre, right? So be prepared means you get here before the teacher, unless you have a legitimate reason not to. You study and you get ready so you can be ready to hear any question the teacher said you're ready to answer. Okay? Even if you're wrong, but you studied it. You're not guessing. You're making an educated guess, if anything. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay? You take notes, and then after you take notes, you go home and organize those notes. Because that's where the real learning is going to start happening. Because now you're going to have to regurgitate. What did he say about this funny looking stuff I wrote on the paper? Okay? And if you don't do it before the next lesson, you get to it and you start looking at your notes. Like, what is this? Because you don't remember anymore. Right? So, be prepared. Number 4. A-ta'a. Don't write it in Arabic. A-ta'a. But the first, be prepared is istidad, is to be prepared, right? But the istidad, from the word add, that's the word. The English word add comes from the Arabic word addada, or add. And that's why they have add with the double D. It's from the Arabic word of putting things together. Okay? Istidad is putting things together. Okay? Seeking to be adad. Okay? Does that make sense? No. All right. So, that's being prepared. 4 is obedience. What I want you to write, listening and following instructions. Go ahead. During the class. Listening. No, write it this way. Listening and following instructions. Listening and following instructions. Go under. Go under instructions. Really, number 4 is to prevent the opposite of listening and following instructions, which is we call, let's make a slash, resisting training. Resisting training. What does it mean to resist?
Keep your mind closed.
Physically, what does it mean to resist?
Put up a barrier.
To put a barrier, what up?
To cut off?
To cut off, to pull back, right? To refuse. Does that make sense? Okay, that's what happens in class a lot of times. When the teacher says, raise your voice, and you don't raise your voice. Sit up, and you say, I don't gotta do this, and you put an expletive. You know? Seriously. I hear it, but we see it when you don't do it. Does that make sense? Everything said, understood, is it spoken?
No.
There's body language, right? And then there's action too. So the teacher says, okay, raise your voice. And nobody raises their voice. Let's say, in that case. You know, so they're resisting. Why are you resisting? They're not listening and following instructions. Okay, this is part of the bad manners that the person's supposed to have with their shift. Listen and follow his instructions. Okay? You may not understand why he's telling you to do it. Do you need to know why?
No.
No, it's all part of his lesson. It's all part of the lesson. And your training. If you don't trust him, don't study under him or her. Does that make sense? If you can't trust him, if you think they're going to make a fool of you or disrespect you in a certain way, then run. Don't go to that teacher, because you cannot learn from someone that you don't trust. Because what happens, you keep relearning, because you didn't trust that you actually got it, right? This is why mothers are the best teachers for children. Why? That child sees no difference between itself and its mother. It was literally, in his mind, part of his mother. See a child crawling on their mother, leaning on their mother? It's just a refrigerator, a bed, whatever she is. She doesn't necessarily, so it's not rude for the child, but they see that as part of themselves. Right, mothers?
Yes.
So whatever the mother says to the child is law. Not the father doesn't even have this right. He's looked upon based on what the mother said he is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when she starts to say something, the child doesn't have to think, do I trust what this woman is saying? Automatically, it's accepted and becomes part and parcel of their belief. Excellent, right? So even outside of that, when you come to teachers, there has to be this trust established. And that's why I told you from the adab of the teacher, because the teacher has adab too. I'm not teaching you all those because it's not pertinent for this particular class. Is that the first rule for him is to remember that all the students are looking at him saying, we don't care how much you know until we know how much you care. That's the first rule the teacher has to know. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we have adab as well that we have to hold to. Okay? But like I said, that's not the focus of this lesson, but they are part and parcel of the adabs that we learn. I'm cutting it short and just focusing on the adabs for your side of it at this stage. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so this is not a whole complete thing of all the adabs. This is just a summarization of what I think is pertinent for us to study enough of to go forward. Inshallah ta'ala, as we go forward, I call the extra readings that people do after they get taught from a teacher, water under a bridge. We're building the bridge now, okay? As you go on, all your experiences, everything you know, everything you see becomes water under that, putting depth in that water. Does everybody follow that? Yes. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So don't resist.
We're getting the foundation.
Insha'Allah. Yes, we're getting the usul. That's the foundation. This is what we're doing, the usul of the adab. And that we can build on top of that. Okay? Number 5. Can everybody see this 1 to 5 on the bottom here?
Yes.
Number 5, writing. Writing. This is one of the adabs, is that the student should write whatever benefit they hear from the teacher. Okay, if they hear something, let's say the teacher's not even talking about the lesson. I usually tell this story. I may be redundant to tell it to you now. I don't mean to insult your intelligence, I just forget who I told the story to. Years ago, I was in Egypt and I was studying with the Shaikh Majdi Sultan. He's a professor now in Qura in Mecca. He's a professor at the university there. At that time, he was just getting out of Dar al-Hadith al-Khairiyya in Mecca as well. And so we were studying together. There were a lot of Russian students at that time in Egypt. You know, they had just gotten their freedom from the Russia. They weren't even Russian. You know, Caucasus, the stands, Kazakhstan. All those countries used to be part of the Ottoman Empire. And they were all sucked up during World War I and II and made part of the USSR. Okay? They said Caucasus, when they came out. The Caucasus. That's when I learned that a Caucasian really is a Muslim. All the Caucasians are Muslim. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I grew up in Brooklyn. The Caucasian was something else. But these people are liars. They're not Caucasians. Ain't nothing Asian about them. Okay? There's a whole big lie. The true Caucasians are 100% Muslim. They don't have no Kafirs in their country. Well, alhamdulillah. But anyway, these guys were under Russia for so many years, so they spoke Russian. And I had been studying with Sheikh Majdi for a longer time than they had. So I had completed certain things, plus I had been in Mauritania. So, it's like a different thing. So I was sitting through their class, when they were sitting with the Sheikh, I was just getting extra benefit, and I had some bad manners still. I would cut off the Sheikh and make a comment, oh no, what about this, that. Oh, you missed this part. Oh man, tell them about this. Oh, in this book like that. And so, at this particular point, he had made an example about something, and I said, well, that example doesn't really sit right because I'm talking about other stuff. And he cut me off and said, it's not from لَيْسَ مِنْ عَادَاتِ الرِّجَالِ جِدَالُ فِي الْأَمْثَالِ. Now, it's not from the adab of men to debate about an example. If you understood the point of the example, why are you debating about it? You get the point? Yes. And I said, subhanallah, let me write that. Say it again. And I started writing it down. And he started saying, "Laysa min a'dat al-rijal." And then Russian guys were like, laughing at me. They were scoffing at me. He cracks on you when you writing it down. And the Sheikh defended me, said, "Hey man, he's only doing this because he really came to get benefit, whatever it is." Okay? He's not doing this. I'm not making fun. He doesn't take it personal because I didn't. I don't even remember what we were studying. Because that was my benefit for that day. You get? This is years later. That was the benefit that I got out of that lesson. I don't even remember what else we were studying.
What did he say?
ليس من أعداد الرجال جدال في الأمثال. Okay? So it's not from the adab of men, the habit of men, to argue and debate over examples. If you understand the point, then what you arguing about? Keep it moving. Get it and go. No smoking and joking. Right? So, this is what the thing is. So writing, the benefit, the Chinese say a little dried ink is better than the strongest memory. A little dried ink is better than the strongest memory. So write it down. I remember being with Shaikh Abdul Razak al-Afifi, rahimahullah. And this was very, very early. This was like in 98. And I didn't even know what a sheikh from the Lejna was all about. I thought he was an old man. And probably on the point of retiring, that's probably why we would get in class from him. But I didn't. All right, here you go. So I learned some battles you're not going to win. At any rate, he told us, قَيُّدُ الْعِلْمُ بِالْكِتَابَةِ. He said, tie up your قَيُّدُ الْعِلْمِ by writing it down. He said, because it's from al-hamata. It's from stupidity to hunt down a gazelle and then leave it there in the woods by itself, right? Without tying it up and bringing it along. قَيُّدُ الْعِلْمَ بِالْكِتَابَةِ. Write down the things that you benefited from. Someone else may not get a benefit from that, but if you got a benefit from it, write it down, reread it. It'll stick with you. Repeat it over and over again till it becomes part of your breathing and your and they call it synergism. In some of the books written by the guys talking about the 7 habits of the most effective people, they talk about synergism, where you take the knowledge someone else given and you mix it with your own experiences, and it comes out with a different flavor, but it has now everything you have and what you've gotten, right? That's what you do with something that you've written down. Does that make sense? Write down what benefits you, and don't care what anybody else says. Number 6, sarcasm and backbiting, or slandering. Sarcasm and slandering the sheikh.
Oh,
Ooh.
do it or
No, do it, come on. Slandering sheikh. Just put sheikh under it. Now this may sound strange. One of the things that we've seen happening over the last 15 years is slandering and backbiting sheikhs. Sarcasm towards the sheikh. You go study with somebody, and then you talk about it. Right? Haven't we seen that, Nazir? And what it does is it brings down knowledge in general. You're not disrespecting the sheikh. I mean, you are, but he's only a part of what you're disrespecting. What are you really disrespecting? Knowledge. What he's only a part. He's a teaching aid. You get it? That's all he is. He's a visa. You're really disrespecting knowledge. And haven't we seen the decline in the respect for knowledge due to the disrespect of the people who bring the knowledge? Yep. This sheikh today is the best thing since ice cream. We realize that he has a fault. He realized that he has personal flaws, whether they're true or not, and then we destroy him. We throw him out. We burn his books. We talk about him like he's a greasy something. This is not the adab of the Muslims. This is the adab of the New York Post, okay? This is the adab of the kuffar, where they tie the knowledge to the personality, and they bring up the personality and make this superstar just so they can character assassinate him, right? And destroy his character. And then everybody who was attached to that character by that superstar is now depressed, right? Depressed because of that character, as opposed to being tied to the knowledge. Everybody follows? One of the things we see today is the Muslims making mistakes in the tarbiyah of their youth, letting their children love these Disney people and all these other things, and then these little Disney people, as they get older, turn into this most raunchiest, dirtiest individuals in the world. But your child is attached to that child now, that no longer child, right? They're attached to those individuals, and they're still looking up to them, and they got their book bag, and it's a long-term memory. A long-term attachment to those individuals. An attachment that is, again, an aqidah issue. Think about it. If they never had an attachment to a superhero, a fake superhero, and they had the love on real people, real heroes, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, and they knew his story and how brave he was. The first army to stop Genghis Khan. And they were loving him like they love Spider-Man. That's a different type of person, right? They want to be like him. Instead of his Spider-Man underwears, he want to wear Salahuddin underwears, right? He want to dream about being Salahuddin. He want to dream about being Utugrul al-Ghazi. You get my point? He wants to be like Abu Dhar, the Sahaba. And he has this strong love towards those individuals. That's real because he can imitate them. He can't shoot a spider web. There was a comedian. I saw him on TV. He was saying that he's a Muslim guy. He tells the truth in his jokes. He said that his son was attached to, I think, Spider-Man. Okay? And he said, man, I know something's wrong with this, but the boy likes the Spider-Man thing. He said then the boy was getting old. He was still attached to this Spider-Man thing. And he got to school and he got in a fight. And the guy he's watching, he says, oh yeah, get him, son. His son said,
Oh my God.
his son did that. He said, that's what he said. Oh man, his son got beat up. He's like, it didn't work, Abby. Because he said he encouraged his son. Because he was fun with do it to him. And he would be like, oh, you got me. He encouraged her. Now when the son got it, he's like, every guy, it didn't work. It didn't work. That's messed up. That's an extreme example of it. But it's still there. It's still there. When Superman and Batman and all these other fake superheroes, psychologically, Dora, this princess, and now your child wants to be that. And anything else is B-rated. They don't see a picture of a Muslim princess, right? They don't have examples, can't name 5 of them. You get my point? So they don't want to dress and be elegant like those Muslim princesses and sultanas used to be. And that's our fault. Because if we had it, we would present it to them. You see how that's an aqidah issue? And so we have an obligation to present it to them. How do we present it to them? By paying people to make the cartoon for them. By paying people to write stories in an interesting and intriguing way that would pull into them. We have a lack of reading material for our teenagers. And they're reading this LGBT crap all the time now. And I get calls, not a month goes by where I'm not getting a call from somebody saying their child is no longer Muslim. The last 5 months. Why? Oh, it's okay. It's okay if they watch that. Who says who? Have we thought about the ramifications for those things? What does the National American Society of was it child psychologists? What do they say about cartoons?
Children shouldn't watch them
At what age shouldn't they watch them? Up until
up until the age of 5.
5 or 6 years old, right?
Yes.
That they said it is psychologically harmful for a child under the age of 5. I heard 6. I was listening to one lecture, 6 years old, for a child to watch those cartoons. Okay? How many adults? Now this is what the kuffar are saying. That the children should not even view those things. Why not? Anybody know why?
Yes.
Distort reality.
Sorry?
Those cartoons distort reality.
Okay, that's not why though. That's part of the reason why. Anybody else?
They're also
Because the child-
subliminally-
That's part of it. That's not the whole reason. It's not have anything to do with the program. It has to do with the child.
It's the development stage was brain. Stuff to learn very easily.
No? Yes, but no.
Is it because of the effects of the neurological?
All this is true, but the point is this.
The rhetoric language.
The point is this. The child does not know that it's not real.
reality.
The child, it's all about that child, does not know at that stage that that is not real.
That's correct, because they're very much in the literal.
They are learning everything.
Yeah,
They are not even civilized. Literally. That's why they be like, ah, food. No, mama. Right? That's what they, right? You mean, this child is crazy. No, he just ain't civilized yet. You know, it takes a while. So by the time they're 17, 18, to get maybe, right? But you guys get my point, right? They don't know, they can't tell the difference between reality and non-reality, so it's all real to them. That's why when you take a ball and you drop it in front of a child with a certain age, they cry, they think it's gone. However, they don't know that it drops and goes someplace. It's just gone now. We are adults. We should be competent. Adult is the aware of on whatever he wants to. So we should be thinking about the psychological effects of everything that we allow in our child's environment, because we're responsible for protecting them from that environment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so these are all part and parcel of our learning. I know we stretch from going from sarcasm and slandering the Shaikh, but hopefully you remember the point here that you should not, you know what they say, you can't hate love the fruit but hate the tree. Okay? And then the fruit of knowledge is those things that you're able to do, the action, right? If you're getting them from the Shaikh, then how can you hate the tree? How can you disrespect the person who's giving you those things? This is the incorrect behavior. Rather, the next one is that you should have sabr. As-sabr ala gharabatihi, meaning eccentricity. Being patient with his eccentricities. Patient with his eccentricities. Please say it.
Patient with his
Eccentricities.
eccentricities.
Some shuyukh, I know you can't tell from me, but some shuyukh are eccentric. Okay? Now I know I'm a little eccentric.
Say it again.
Eccentricity.
Eccentricities. Patience.
Patience.
See, Isa. Patience with the Sheikh's eccentricities. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
I may be a little weird. And if that's an understatement, I know I'm a little weird. But that may be what you need. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you have to be patient with the weird things your teacher does, the weird thing the teacher tells you to do in order for you to get what you want. If you can't be patient with that person's eccentricities, you run the risk of not getting your desire, the thing that you want. Is it worth it? And there are some people who are so, again, rigid. They're so pigeonholed everything. If you don't look like this, if you don't do it like this, I can't see you. They've painted a picture of what it's supposed to look like, yet they know they haven't reached it and know that it's supposed to look like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we again have to open our minds and not be so closed-minded about what we're expecting. Okay? Relax. Listen. Pay attention to what's being said, how it's being said. Research. That's what's called research. What you've been told and what you find. And then that will let you know whether you can trust the words and the directions that the teacher is giving you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if a teacher has some eccentric habits, physical things, way of talking, you don't imitate, you don't make fun of that shit. If he has some strange ways of teaching, you should imitate those things. When you teaching, you can. That's yours to take. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he said they used to imitate the way Shaykh Saadi wrote. That's how much they used to imitate him. And he used to write very lightly. As he was older, his handwriting was very light and fragile. But they used to try so much just to write like him. That's honoring your teacher. Imitating teaching styles and stuff like that. When I was a teacher, in grade school teacher, I learned how to do this by accident. I'm not going to make like I was so smart. I came in the classroom one time and the children were imitating me. So I said, oh, let me take a look at this. See what I'm doing right and doing wrong. Okay? And there were some things that I didn't like, but they were imitating. I can't, call it nothing wrong. If I like it, they're imitating me. So I came in with noise and they broke it up. And then every once in a while, I would tell them to throw on a play and imitate me just to see what they're going to do. Just to give myself a test on how am I doing? What are they learning? What are they getting from me? Does that make sense? And so that I can take a lesson from that. Children are the best thing to use because they're like a ball. How hard you throw it, how hard it comes back. In this regard. And the environment plays a large role in that regard. Okay? We were sitting in the Prophet's Masjid, and one of the Shaykh was talking about how the West of the dunya, and they were saying, yeah, but we're in the Prophet's Masjid. I said, no, the dunya is right here. He was pointing, it's right outside the Prophet's Masjid, and it's true. You got Starbucks right there. It ain't no good. I tried it. It's terrible. It's terrible. But the point is they have it there. You get my point? And they think that this is a good thing. What happened to the good old Turkish coffee that keeps you up for a month?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? One small cup like this, you're good. The Yemeni bean is green when you start. So it's different. But now Starbucks, you got all this big money and you don't get the same thing. But the point is that even in the Prophet's Masjid, in the environment of the Prophet's Medina, you still have the West there affected. So we're all dealing with the effects of kufr. We're going to call it kufr. And so we all have to do things on our level best to prevent this from affecting our children. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Go ahead. The next thing is, don't, in Arabic, I said, وَلَا تَقُولُوا أَعْلَمَ أَعْلَمْ. Don't argue and debate with the teacher. Okay? Do not argue and debate.
How is that different from the other earlier one you gave about?
Sarcasm and slandering is behind his back. Or sarcasm and is in front of him has a negative, intention with it. Let's say, when you're talking to the teacher and you're talking to him with an attitude. Does that make sense?
Yes, but
That-
I'm talking about when you said don't debate what's understood.
I said that I mentioned it at writing.
Right.
Okay? But that was regarding writing what you benefit from. The rule is don't argue and debate. Okay, I gave an example that covers both of them. The example was to show you write down what you benefit. The other part of it was cutting off, which goes to the ninth one, which is cutting off the share. But the difference between sarcasm, not the slander is going to happen behind his back. The sarcasm might be in the classroom. Okay, sometimes a teacher is talking and the student is being sarcastic with him in his response and his attitude. That has a negative mentality to it. Arguing and debating may not be with a bad intention. It's just trying to understand. Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's a different tone to the two. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, with the next one, the ninth one, and an example would be the arguing, debating is what I was doing with Shaikh Majdi, okay, Sultan. Does that make sense? After he checked me, I wrote it down. That was the reason for the example, to write down the fawaid, the benefit, okay? In fact, we should put writing what benefits you, what benefit you find, okay? To clarify, number 5, that writing what benefits you. Okay, so do not argue and debate with the teacher. Let's say sometimes a student thinks he has to know and understand every single thing the teacher said. That would be good if you could do that. What I try to say is if you could understand at least 80% of what I'm talking about. There's got to be some level, and you have to accept some level of, okay, I didn't necessarily get it. It's okay. I'll be patient. Part of teaching is to be redundant. To say something over and over. Don't you see I repeat myself over and over again until you say what I'm going to say. Attention to what?
Detail.
Too slow. Okay? Attention to what?
Detail.
So what I'm doing is being redundant intentionally. So that you start hearing my voice in your head, becomes you're conscious, and then you build on that. Those types of things, inshallah ta'ala. So, don't argue and debate with the teacher. If you get most of the things that he's referring to, hope and pray that you get it later on and study what he told you to do. And next lesson, sleep on it. Like I said, sometimes when you take a nap after a lesson and then you go and look at it again, all of a sudden it makes a little bit more sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Number 9 is don't say, I know, I know. Don't say, I know, and don't say, so-and-so said. Okay, don't say, I know, I know. And don't say, and you don't have to say it, don't say, I know, and then put under here and say, so-and-so said. So-and-so said. Let's say I said something and another sheikh said something totally opposite. Is it from the good manners to say, yeah, but Taubah, in the middle of the class, so-and-so said the opposite of what you said? Is that good manners?
No.
So what? So-and-so said the opposite. There's a rule that says, وَأَنْتَ حُرٌّ فَاخْتَرْ مَا تَشَاءُ. Okay, it says if you hear, this is a rule from that, if you hear a sheikh say one thing, and then another sheikh tell you something else, فَأَنْتَ حُرٌّ, then you're free. فَاخْتَرْ مَا تَشَاءُ. You're free, choose whichever one you like. وَلَا تَعِبْ مَكَانَ الْإِحْتِرَامِ. But don't disrespect the place that should be respected. Meaning, لَا تُعِبْ, meaning don't make a aib. But how do you say aib in English? Aib, هذا aib. Not an issue. Don't make it, don't uglify. You can't Englishize it, Don't uglify a place that should be respected.
It's like that's wrong.
Yeah, don't make a place wrong that you should have respect for. Because an aib is a deficiency in something. Does everybody follow me? If I'm buying fruit and I say, well, this one's aib, it's not up to par. So don't make the class up to par if it should be respected. You heard this statement, you heard that, so then choose which one you think is more correct. But that doesn't mean that you should disrespect the class and make, or not disrespect it, but make it seem deficient, one, and you really don't know which one is correct at this point. Does that make sense? Everybody follow me?
Yes.
So don't say that. Okay, now, if you really got a question, you say, you know what, I don't want to say anything that's going to make it seem like one statement is stronger than the other and then weaken it in other people's minds. Does that say? Then afterwards you come and you ask that question. Okay? And that's where you wait till, hold on, well, it's not, and it's sometimes teachers don't like you to say, well, I heard this. We don't care what you heard. What do you understand? Okay? Tell me what you hold personal. Because when you say so-and-so said, you're not holding yourself responsible. You get my point?
Yes.
You're like, I'm not in it. It's so-and-so. I'm thinking, oh, he hit you. That's from him. No. Hit that guy. You know what? But put some skin in the game. I understand the issue like this. Does that make more sense?
Yes.
Could you explain to me, I don't understand that. Then you can do something. But don't put someone else into it. Does everybody follow me? One of the things that has harmed us is people not having skin in the game, declaring what they actually believe. It's a way, I consider it a really cowardly way of presenting an issue. Because so if that one's wrong, it wasn't me, it was so-and-so. You see how that goes? Well, why'd you say it? You said it. So let's put skin in the game. There's nothing wrong with thinking a certain way. The teacher could be wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But that brings more sincerity in my estimation.
So,
Sir?
Take ownership.
Take ownership. That's the word that I was looking for. Thank you. Take ownership for your view. Yes?
so that shouldn't be mentioned after class. It should be mentioned, with other students around, but pull the teacher aside, because that happens a lot.
Are you asking me or are
I'm
you telling
asking
me?
you.
Then ask again.
Should I pull you aside outside of class if I hear
okay.
something that's opposite I heard before that maybe?
His question is, when should you approach the teacher with that? Is that correct?
After the lesson or after?
No, just answer. You see how I rephrased it?
Mm-hmm.
When should you approach the teacher about that?
When should you approach?
That's the question. Okay, first thing you should do is write down. And we haven't gotten to how you should do the lesson. Remember we talked about that's going to come to the adab of the student with the lesson? There's a certain way you can set up your paper. So if there's something happens, you make a mark so that you can reflect and say, okay, I got a question about this particular thing. Right? And you write that question down. Once you have that question down, now you go hunting. What are you hunting for? The right time and place. First, you hunt for the right language. What did I say from the adab of the student? لَن تَنَالُوا الْعِلْمَ إِلَّا بِسِتَّةٍ. You'll never learn knowledge except for if you have 6. And making a beautiful question. That's why you see half the time you ask it, I rephrase the question. You got to figure out, how do I ask this question correctly? You get my point? What is at issue here for real? And how can I phrase that? Okay? That will get me to understand this and not put it forth as though I'm disrespectful. All these things are part of that. Does everybody follow me?
Yes.
Then you have to hunt for the right time and place. Now this is coming from the adab of the class, the student with his lesson. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَامٍ. Ali ibn Abi Talib is considered the wisest man in the world. And this piece of idea is going to come in that class, but you can write it down now. Every particular place has its own particular speech, type of speech. So you have to make sure everything that's known should not be said. Only a fool says everything he knows. Right? They talk about having your feelings on your what?
Sleeves.
Why do they call it on your sleeves?
Because it's always out.
Because everybody can see it. Did you get my point? No, you don't do that. You write it down, then you look for the right. He said everything known shouldn't be said. Because maybe the right time for that isn't there. Okay? Maybe the right place for that isn't here. You have the right time, but it's not the right place. You have the right time and place, but you don't have the right language for it. You know, so you have to hunt for the right time, place, you know, and the right words, and when all these things come together, then you present your question. But we are very impatient. Leggy, like right now, I gotta know it now, give it to me now, microwave now. And if I don't get it, then I'm gonna forget, then it's not important then, is it? If it's so shallow that you're gonna forget, then it's not muhimmun. Because himmun is something that you over and over and over, you're obsessing over. It's eating at you. Especially if you wrote it down. And then you go back and look and say, well, how can I, work this in? And maybe when you write that there and you see the opportunity, in the rest of the lesson, it'll explain it. Does that make sense? And so you say, okay, I got that. Click that one off. How many times I done wrote questions and then there's a Shaikh talking, okay. Just put a line through that one, got it, understand it, boom, boom, boom. So, there's no benefit. And one of the things I know there's another poem, I forget it at the moment. It says, وَلَا تَقُلْ أَعْلَمْ أَعْلَمْ. Don't say I know, because when you say that, the Shaikh stops teaching. He says, okay. But he might have given you something that you didn't know. You see, Shaykh Farid Abdullah, Hafidhullah, he used to say, never stop a teacher from saying something to you, right? Or you're disputing, you're arguing with somebody. Because when you listen to them, you're going to hear one of two things. A flaw in your research or a flaw in his. Does that make sense? What's the benefit of knowing a flaw in his research?
Not true.
Now you know that there's something correct. You made ta'keed. Let's say he says the same thing you knew he was going to say, and it confirms what you want to say. Well, now you know for sure about that particular thing. What if you knew it was the same mistake you thought he was going to make? Well, now you know that mistake is rampant. You get my point? It's always increasing you in knowledge. And if it's a mistake a flaw in your research, well, that's good. Hey, had. And Umar ibn Khattab, you say, may Allah have mercy on the man who gives me as a gift my mistakes, my flaws. That's good. Now I'm better than I was an hour ago. Right? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So these are things we don't say that. And that goes back to, what if you say, well, the teacher is long-winded? Be patient with his eccentricities. Because if a teacher harps on a particular issue, then he's warning you about that thing. He's showing you how important that thing is and how it relates to everything. Right? Does that make sense? Like me, I try to constantly rephrase how we look at the concept of Aqidah. Okay? Because we've been learned and taught to put Aqidah in a strict mode that is not in our practical life, while ignoring the issues of Aqidah in our practical lives. So I want to expose that so that we can really start looking at our worldview as it relates to how we walk, talk, think, and view every aspect of our lives. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So hear those particular things. So I want to bring it back into being a light subject as opposed to a subject that we put off and we study secretly because we don't want anybody else to know if we're making a mistake or something like that. Because we're afraid. Because some group of people don't want it to be studied. And you have to think about who benefits from that. Right? Who's benefiting from that? And who's done that historically? Always the ones who read up on the Young Turks and the people who took down the Muslims and took down the Muslim administration and what they did and how they did that. And then you will look at these people and what they're saying. See if their statements are uniting or if they're disparaging, making disunity in that regard. And then that should tell you who you can trust and who you should listen to and where you should put them in. We're not making them kafirs. But we definitely are not going to sit silent and pretend like it's not a cult, even if they say they're Salafi. So Farrakhan, doesn't he say he's in the Nation of Islam? Right? We don't not say he's a kafir just because he claims to say the Nation of Islam. Likewise, we shouldn't claim that these people who are claiming to be Salafis are not a cult. That because we believe in the Salafi da'wah, as far as it being that we believe in the oneness of Allah. Does that make sense? But this other stuff that they do, and we know the rude behavior, the who's off it and on it, all that bigotry is a cult thing. That pigeonholing of Islam And bigotry is to refuse and reject proof from anybody but their sheikh, one person, who's not even respected as a sheikh in his country. Does that make sense? Not on one sheikh board in Saudi Arabia, not the imam of a masjid, nothing. Yet you want us to follow this cat? No, man, no. And there's a jurisdiction issue as well. As we constantly say, there is a jurisdiction issue. And those who don't want to get off of that stuff, go ahead, see how far they get with it. See how far we get with it. Okay? But we're going to put out a product. And we're going to see the intent, the natija, the end of that product. Okay? And we can see and put that up. As Ahmed ibn Hanbal said, don't tell me about what so-and-so's companion is. Bring his children. Your children are the proof against you. What they're on is what you're on. Does that make sense? No. That's our product. The worth of a man is what he can do. You know, and I want to put this point out again. Because the Salafi cult, you know, people have not said anything because they don't want nobody to think that they're against following the Salaf. But these guys are a cult. They're anti-Islamic. They're like the Shia, except that I'm not saying that they're Kafirs. They're doing this tabadiyya, pushing people away, and that leads to, you know, estrangement. Even they won't even pray with brothers and all these type of things, you know? If, after all this time of studying with somebody, you still can't tell who is on it and who is not, then you're wasting your time. Because isn't the product of knowledge, action, knowing what's right and wrong? So after 10 years, you still don't know what's right and wrong? You still need to call someone else. Is this correct? After all this time?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. But I'm not crazy. I know a damn fool when I see one. And I'm not afraid to say it. So let's be real about what we're talking about. Establishing the sunnah in the proper context. Being inclusive and not pushing people away. And letting those people who want to do that, get ahead with their bad self. But don't claim that you're following the Salaf. You're lying. And we're going to describe those activities and describe the proper ones and then see for yourself what is what. The 10th one is making dua for your teacher. Is the most powerful one is dua. Making dua for your teacher. Alhamdulillah. This is the best thing you can do for your teacher, is make dua for him or her. In fact, you should think about all the people you've benefited from and make dua for them. Okay? We're standing on the shoulders of a lot of people. And even if some of the things they did were incorrect and were not correct at the time, but they were the best of us at that time. And we don't find in the sunnah of the Prophet that he disrespected his ancestors. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When we mention Hashim, Hashim was a kafir. But we don't ever mention him in that light. We mention him as a legend. He crumbled bread and put it in the soup, in the broth. We mention a great thing that he did. But then when we mention Warathuddin Muhammad, we try to say, oh, he was a legend. Man, he gave shahada to 25,000 people in one day. You get my point? Whatever his flaws are. Rahimahumullah. You guys get my, and he was Muslim. So we cannot understand from the Prophet that he did not disrespect his ancestors.
Kuffar.
Who were kuffar, and he mentioned them in a legendary fashion. And we too. And there's a message in that on whose shoulders we're standing on. How did we get here? Every one of us. Half the people in the United States that's Muslim wouldn't be able to wear a kufi or walk around like Muslims if it wasn't for the the Nation of Islam. Realistically. And the FOI, so we need to understand and take a different look at our past. Not to confirm the wrongness of it, but to confirm the rightness of whatever was there. As we see that the Prophet ﷺ did that for his ancestors. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Islam has come
To preserve and protect, prioritize, and always respect my deen, my mind, my wealth, my honor, my lineage, myself.
And that's the proof that that's what we're supposed to do. It's actually heritage. I like the word heritage now more, I think, because it is more encompassing of, because heritage includes your ancestry and your lineage in general, your whole heritage. Does that make sense? Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Anything that I've said here that's incorrect is from myself. And all the good things is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa jazakumullah khair. Everybody will get from a lesson. As a talib al-ilm, you will only get from a teacher what you're looking for. If you come to a class and you're looking to find mistakes, you will find lots of mistakes, especially from me. Okay? And if you're coming to find good things, you will find good things. It's all about what you're looking for. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.